Good afternoon once again, and welcome to Prime Business Newspaper Lounge, as well as the conference. We welcome you to this event, and we thank you for spending your afternoon with us on a Tuesday afternoon itself. For most of the people here who are businessmen or corporate leaders, because we know that you have other things to engage you, but because of the respect you have for us, we are here. So we thank you for coming. Let me start by just giving some outro. We're going to have the first part will be introducing the business for the launch of the newspaper, and the second part will be about the panel discussion, the keynote and the panel discussion. If you have question or comment, please put them in the chat room. We'll be able to take them. When we get to question and answer, we'll be able to do Q&A. We'll be able to take some live questions. But we would prefer if you put the question in the chat room, in case we are not able to get to you. You can take the question. And my co-moderator, who is Elohim Barry. Elohim, good afternoon. She will be my co-moderator. I should be able to join us, to help us with the question and answer session. Elohim? Good afternoon, Elohim.
How are you?
Thank you very much, Elohim. Yeah, nice to see you. That's my co-moderator, and she will be helping us in the course of this program. I think we are set to start, so I can just start by introducing all our special guests. The keynote speaker, Dr. Bongo Adi. I'll be reading his profile later. I just want to acknowledge that he's here already with us. Good afternoon, Dr. Bongo Adi. He's our board chairman of Newstart Publication. Good afternoon, sir. That's our board chairman. Good afternoon. For Prime Business Newspaper, that's our chairman. Thank you very much. Professor Pat Utomi joining us from the US. He's the chairman of the editorial board of Prime Business, but he's joining us because of the time difference. He's going to be with us. I can see Ambassador Eloho Otobo, board director of Newstide Publications Limited. Good afternoon, Ambassador Eloho Otobo. Good afternoon, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay, good afternoon. Nice to see you, Prof.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, that's the board. That's a member of the board of Newstide Publications Limited, and it's also going to be speaking this afternoon to us. I've introduced Ms. Elohim Barry, founder African Media Agency, AMA. Thank you very much, Elohim. Maybe you want to show your face again. Just wave at us. Elohim Barry.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very happy, excited. It's such a big day. I'm very excited to be a part of this launch. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. She's also a board member of the Prime Business Newspaper, member of the editorial board. And we have quite a lot of other guests here. I wish I would quickly go to the name, but I will get to them eventually. And then let me especially welcome and celebrate the visionary behind Prime Business Newspaper, Dr. Marcel Mbamalu. I have a pet name for him. When we worked together at The Guardian, he was my business editor when I was editor at The Guardian newspaper on Sunday. He was my business, and I used to call him Compact. Compact because there's nothing Marcel could not do. Just give him the assignment is done. So I call him Compact Journalist. So
thank you, Mr. German.
Okay. So we're going to have the welcome address by the Prime Business Publisher Editor-in-Chief, Dr. Marcel Mbamalu. Eventually, I will read his, but I think I can read his profile now, while I read the others later. Marcel Mbamalu, PhD, is a veteran journalist, an East-West Center fellow, an academician. He has garnered top-of-the-range expertise within and outside Nigeria in journalism. You can see his gown in the background, so we know that he's a PhD. He served as the news editor of The Guardian, Nigeria's flagship newspaper, after rising through the ranks and grooming tens of crack journalists under his wings. Mbamalu holds a bachelor's degree in mass communication from the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, UNN, master's in mass communication from the University of Lagos, UNILAG, and a doctorate degree in journalism from UNN. Marcel Mbamalu, PhD, is the editor-in-chief and publisher of Prime Business Africa and Newstide, two emerging online newspaper platforms poised to change the digital journalism space with incisive, factual, and insightful reporting. Marcel Mbamalu, please tell us why we're here. Give us your welcome address. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jama Anikulapo. I said, actually, it's a red letter day. I'm pleased to have all of us here. You know, the chairman, my chairman, Mr. Dr. Bongadi, and the editorial board members, the directors, everyone who has made it possible for this day to become what it's going to be. Today is a day that we just want to say, we want to make a statement in the industry, in the media space, to say that we know there is a gap in media space and we want to do something differently. And how do we want to do something differently? We decided that we have to, you know, come together, talk to experts in the media space, those who know what it is to practice real journalism, even though some of them are currently not in the industry. They are either teachers of journalism or they are the real hewers of wood in the journalism space. So everyone that you see here in the board or the board of directors or playing a role in the editorial board, they've all paid their dues in the media space. So we kept talking for months after maybe a month after I left the industry, I left The Guardian, having spent 16 years there. I felt it was time to move on. And we kept talking. And what you're seeing today is a crystallization of those discussions we had. And I'm glad that today it's materializing. Newstide Publications Limited is born. And it has almost having a child immediately, the Prime Business Africa. So the people that we have in our board, we chose them because we know that they have what to offer. They have something to offer to bring our vision and mission to reality. What is our mission? We want to do something differently in the space of reporting, investigative journalism, in the space of, in the area of research, in the area of core journalism investigation, in the area of in the media industry, training, building skills that would help to change things, given the current challenge that we have, not just in Nigeria, but across Africa. So we hope that after today, what Nigerians and of course Africans will begin to see at Newstide and by extension at the Prime Business Africa be a crystallization of this vision of helping African economies, helping Nigerian economy, and helping African economies, you know, understand what corporate governance is and what they should do to make things better for their masses, for the populace. So as journalists, we are watchdogs. So what do? We monitor not just the private sector, the public sector, the private and public sector space, and we create content that will help decision makers take the right decisions to engender development. So I hope that going forward with the kind of editorial board members and the kind of directors that we have on the board, we are going to really deliver the good. We are not going to disappoint. So you're welcome once again. I'm hoping that this relationship that we have started by the participation of each and every one of us that has come here, we continue, say, in the next 50 years. Thank you very much once again for coming. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Marcel Mbamalu. I told you that Marcel is compact, and you can see everything he has said, he didn't look in any book. If it were me, I'll be looking in a book because I'm not that sharp as Marcel. So why are we here on a Tuesday afternoon when we should be in other places? I'd just like to say that we're here for two things. Marcel has spoken about one of them, extensively about one of them. He's spoken about the vision that is behind the founding of Prime Business Newspaper. And as he has prayed, the vision will live for over 50 years. It will outlast all of us. It will become a legacy. You know, this is a legacy project. But the second part, why we're here, is the discussion that we're going to have. It's a conference, but I hesitate to call it a conference because this is more or less like an exchange. We all know that our nation, apart from the problem of insecurity, secessionist movement, and the rest of them, one big problem that is giving all of us concern is the debt burden, the humongous debt that Nigeria has been able to accumulate. I think up to last year, it was over $33 trillion already. And we're wondering why we got to this place. But we're going to be, we have very good experts in the house who will be able to tell us about we are going to discuss this question of Nigeria debt burden that keeps on rising, because we also noticed that fresh applications have been made for more debt. We hope we get out of it one day, but we certainly don't want to leave a nation to our children that is so heavily indebted that they hardly can live comfortably. We have to stop kneeling down on the neck of our children. Elohim, maybe you want to spend the time to formally welcome our guest while I make consultation with Ibaklu.
Sure. So yes, thank you very much for joining us all. I suspect that after this video, I don't know, maybe why don't we move to the keynote? I'm very interested and excited to hear about our chairman, Dr. Bongo. I think, sorry, I'm taking the freedom to change things around a little bit because I'm also aware of time. So Dr. Bongo, I think I will give you the floor for your keynote while we fix the video. Thank you so much. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Elohim. Thank you, the managing editor, Dr. Mbamalo, the chairman of the editorial board, colleagues on the board of Prime Business News Africa. I'm very glad to be here with you this afternoon, and it's quite an honor and privilege, not just to be on the board, but also Dr. Mbamalo considered me, suitable to fit into this big shoe of delivering the keynote on this special day, the official launching of this great initiative that I'm very confident has a whole lot of promise, to redefine digital journalism, especially economic journalism in Africa, not just in Nigeria. So I'm just glad to be here. So the topic this afternoon, which is the debt burden and the quest for economic recovery, is a very interesting one. Just as the moderator said earlier, Mr. Nikolapo, this is something that has raised so much dust in Nigeria in recent, in the past few days or months. The country national debt kept on increasing from single digit some years back to it's getting close to $40 billion as we speak. So that is a lot, and there is mounting concern regarding the prospects of this debt, especially for economic well-being. So latent in this in the topic, the debt burden and quest for economic recovery, is this whole thing, the skepticism, the discomfort, the agnosticism about the strategy that we seem to be following in getting the economy working again, which is a leverage one. Yes, so it's all justified for us to be concerned and for us to be disquiet about this whole episode. But do we really need to be? My approach, I'm actually speaking extempore, so I have a lot of ideas in my head, so I want to share with you so that we can have an engaging conversation. So I'll be spicing it up with a lot of questions. So my first question is, do we need debts to recover the economy? Okay, so speaking about debt burden and the quest for economic recovery, do we really need debts to recover the economy? So the first thing is to look at where the economy was and the reason why it needs to be recovered. Before 2015, the economy for the preceding 10 years, the economy grew at an average rate of 6%. That was quite commendable. We had a very sustainable growth, not just growth of the real sector, even though some people characterize the growth that we recorded then as growth without development or growth without transformation. But the important thing is that the economy grew. Okay, if we follow the rule of 70 for economists or statisticians, you know that if a variable is growing at the rate X, so it will take 70 over X years for that variable to double. So supposing that we kept on growing at 7% on average, so it means that in about 10 years, or say 11 years, we will have a doubling of our per capita income or even of our GDP. So that's why growth rate is important, and sustaining it over a long period is important. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. And the reason why it didn't happen is obvious to all of us, which is the slump in oil price, which happened in 2016 that, of course, threw the economy into a recession. Okay, and ever since we have not managed even a 1.5% growth. So if you look at the average rate growth between 2015 and now, it's less than 2%. So which is far below the population growth rate. So that means the economy has actually plummeted and is in dire need of a recovery. So there is no question about recovering the economy and the need to do so. But the issue is, what is the strategy? What's the best strategy? Is debt the best strategy to recover the economy? There is nothing wrong with that, by the way. If you follow, I don't know if you've read this book by Niall Ferguson. Niall Ferguson is one of the foremost economic historians of today, and he has this, about writing very interesting books. The most, I think, influential book he's written in recent times is The Ascent of Money. So I can paraphrase him. He says that the kingdom of heaven runs on righteousness. Somebody say that the kingdom of this world runs on oil, but the Ferguson is of the opinion that the kingdom of this world runs on debt. Okay, and then he said that planet finance has so much dwarfed planet Earth. And then why does he say that? If you look at the financial system, if you look at finance and the derivatives, so you see that global GDP, say in 2006, was about $47 trillion, though it has grown to about $84 trillion right now. So, but I think the import is still there, which is that the stock market capitalization, global stock market capitalization is bigger or larger than the world GDP by about 10%. And then if you take it to the world of bonds, okay, bonds, and then you notice that bond market itself is even larger than the stock market and larger than output, which is more physical output by more than 53%. Then if you go to the market for derivatives, it's actually more, exceedingly high. So what does that tell us? That debt is increasingly becoming important in the world in which we live today. And if you consider the developed countries around in the world, the United States, or the Europe, in Europe, Asia, Japan, so you notice that credit is a core component of the greatest innovation of the last century, which makes the economy go round. Okay, so countries that are advanced, countries that are successful, tend to also have a high level of internal credit systems. So part of the challenges that we have in developing countries, in emerging market like ours, is the underdeveloped credit system. But again, that is about domestic credit. It's not about international borrowing that our government has embarked on. So there is nothing wrong with debt, actually. In fact, for a borrower, debt is a huge leverage. And then in finance, we know that debt is actually cheaper than equity. So given that debt is cheaper than equity, the rational incentive here will be for any project initiator or any government to prefer debt to using own equity to fund projects. But that's as good as it could go. And that leads me to what I call the manufacturing approach to this analysis, which is if we take debt as an input, in a production system. So the national economy in Nigeria is a production system. It could be a machine and equipment, or in economics we talk about production function. So we have the input or the infeed, which is debt. So we have a stock of debt, which is now funneled into the economy. Now, we'll be expecting that it will lead to output. This machine, which is the economy, we convert that in inputs into the expected output, which could be economic growth or economic recovery. Okay, so that is it. And I think that is the thinking of the people in government, the policy makers, the planners who prefer debt to other alternative sources of funding projects or revamping the economy. So their thinking is that when they have borrowed money, and channel the funds into the economy, that it will ultimately lead to economic growth. But is that true? Is that the reality? I think that's the question that we need to answer. Now, if we look at the economic system, the political economy that we have, is it such that will allow that fungibility rate that we expect, when we put in debt and then expecting that to be converted into output? Does the political economy setting that we have now, enough, or does it guarantee us that we will, get the expected output or the yield, from the inputs that we have made? So this is a question I will leave us to ponder, so I want us to consider that, because I don't want to preempt anything. But my thinking is that we have a very perverse political economic system, which seems to undermine the fungibility of whatever that is put into it. Now, this is not the first time Nigeria has borrowed. Okay. Again, economic theory. I just wanted to run away from economic theory. I don't want to go to what the theory has said, research has said about debt and economic growth. Again, so what has been found is that the fungibility, whether debt translates to economic growth, depends on the economic system in place. In the Scandinavian countries, it has been established that once the debt level reaches something like 60% of the GDP, now it begins to undermine growth. Okay. Now, in Nigeria currently, our debt to GDP ratio is something in the neighborhood of 22%. So, which is far lower than 60%. But again, these are all context specific and context dependent variables. So it's not one cup fit all sort of thing. That the Scandinavian countries, has a 60% threshold, does not mean that the threshold level in Nigeria could actually be 60%. For instance, we know that our revenue to debt ratio is almost 90. 90%. That is 90% of our revenue is used in debt servicing, leaving government. So independent revenue that is available to government for social provisioning is just 10%. So that is massive, and that's what we need to worry so much about. But if it is about debt to GDP ratio, it's still very low. Then another thing that we need to consider, what is the size of debt that Nigeria needs? Yes, the debt is climbing, it's going to $40 billion, and I'm sure that, by the time the various pipeline projects come on stream and fresh borrowings are made, we'll be hitting 50 billion or something. It may actually be higher than our external reserve at the end of the day. But again, what is the size of our economy? We have an economy that is, as at 2013, when it was recalibrated, our economy came to about 527 billion. Okay, but this 527 billion economy has an infrastructure sustainability of less than 20%. So meaning that the infrastructure stock, the asset of infrastructure that we have powering this economy of 500, that is the largest in Africa, is just 20% of the GDP. South Africa alone is more than 70% of its GDP, and 80% actually. And the World Bank has recommended something like 70% of the GDP to reach a sustainable infrastructure level that will guarantee sustainable growth. So we are far lower than that. So put all these things into context. It is not really out of place for the government to look for sources of funds to invest in infrastructure. Now the question is debt the only option that we need to consider or that we need to explore? Now let me borrow from corporate finance. If a corporation, an organization, or a firm wants to embark on any project, expansion, or whatever, the first thing they will do is to look at their books to see if it is possible for them to raise the funds internally. Yes, debt may be cheap, but the cost of borrowing may actually be high. Again, cost of borrowing reflects a whole lot of things, including the risk, the perceived risk profile of the borrowing entity. So if the perceived risk is high, that means the cost of borrowing will reflect that, and that means it will be high. So at the end of the day, debt may not actually be cheap. And I understand that given the socio-political environment in Nigeria currently, our risk profile has gone up, meaning that the cost of borrowing will definitely be up there. So these are some of the things that we need to consider. So when we go down, look at our books, what are the options? What options do we have, either to complement or to substitute, this debt? Now, we have a whole lot of distortions in the system, a whole lot of wastages, a lot of slack in this system. Just the other day, NNPC underwent the first audit in, donkey years, and it was discovered that some of the refineries have not contributed anything in terms of revenue. Instead, they become like drain pipes. Some, running in deficit of almost 60-something billion. And then government still finds it, proper to be funding all the drain pipes. So, I think there is a way to reallocate some sort of resources such that we would not need to go borrowing heavily and undermining future sustainability. So the reallocation of resources internally could actually give us some sort of headroom, in providing some of the infrastructure that we need without relying on debt as such. Again, public-private partnership. We have seen the government since 2008 or 2006, when the Infrastructure Concession and Regulatory Commission was established in Abuja. So we've been preaching the gospel of public-private partnership. But if you ask me, as we speak, no significant PPP has taken off in Nigeria. Of course, you have small project finance in the housing, those ones that are easy to recover and easy to manage. But when it comes to real project finance, large infrastructure projects in billions of dollars, none has actually taken off. Okay, and then government is also, even though there is refineries and so many other government, state-owned enterprises are in loss-making situations. State government is very reluctant to allow private sector or private expertise into all those sectors, to again unlock funds to embark on other necessary, infrastructure or assets that will catalyze the economic recovery that they are talking about. So now, why is this penchant for borrowing? Okay, rather than exploring other options, why does our government, fell into this default position of seeking external funds for its projects? I think it has to do with the same political economy that has come under, a serious challenge in Nigeria in recent times, which is what I would describe as the political economy of the Leviathan state. So the state is overextended. The state sees itself as the be-all and end-all, okay, without giving the private sector, sufficient. In fact, it doesn't engage with the private sector in any way. It doesn't engage private capital. So what we have seen is a state that wants to be at the commanding height of the economy. I have actually written about this in the past, that Nigeria seems to be a communist state, where the state controls everything. Okay, so that has, it has created some sort of a path-dependent situation. Path-dependent that the government has found itself trapped in a path where, because it controls the revenue source, which is the monolithic revenue coming from oil source mainly, which the government controls. So I don't think there is any willingness on the part of government to relinquish its hold on that revenue source. And then that is what gives the government its power to provide everything. So when that revenue source is threatened, as it is, whenever oil price goes down, now the default position is to look for alternative, which is to borrow money so that it will still continue to maintain its commanding height of the economy. Now, in this modern age and time, I don't think that puts us in a competitive position. Okay. Now, I listened to the president the other day. He was talking about bringing investors into the country. But then, how do you bring investors into this kind of political economy that we have? I think the first order of the day will be to, I don't want to bring in that word restructuring because they don't want to hear it. But I'm not talking about political restructuring, but I'm talking about macroeconomic restructuring, fiscal restructuring. We need all of that to happen so that we can create the right incentives within the system such that the government doesn't need to worry whether foreign capital comes in, because I believe that there is enough domestic capital that could help in revamping the economy and catalyzing the economic recovery that they are working hard at. But except that is done, of course, we continue to have this scenario of capital flight, and Nigeria's, the economy will continue also to be unattractive to foreign investors. So the question that I think, in conclusion, that we need to ask is, does our current political economy permit sufficient debt fungibility? The political economy that we have, is this such that when we bring in the debt, okay, we are sure that they will give us the outputs, which is economic growth or infrastructure that we desire? I think we need to dwell on that. Yes, there are some other issues that I would love to talk about, but I think let me leave it there for the team of panelists to also weigh in on the matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir, for the keynote. In case we missed to introduce you properly at the beginning, Dr. Bongo-Adi is a development economist, data scientist, and project finance expert. So he has, Dr. Adi has vast experience spanning about 2 decades in the field of research, consulting, policy design, capital raising, business development, and data analytics. He has well over 15 years of experience in teaching, policy research, and consulting. He has consulted for international organizations like the World Bank, JICA, UNCTAD, ICANN. Dr. Bongo is a resident economic and policy analyst with major TV stations in Nigeria, such as Channels TV, Arise TV, CBN Africa, AIT, and many more. He maintains a column, Bongonomics, wow, in Nigeria Business Day newspaper, is recipient of numerous awards. So you've just met Dr. Bongo. So I now know where the television station get all their strength from. I wonder how they get all those figures. So now I know that you are behind it. Thank you very much for the keynote. I'll be posting his profile in the chat room so we can harvest it from there. Having said that, let me invite Ambassador Ejeviome Otobo. I hope I got that right. Ejeviome Otobo. Ambassador Otobo is a collaborator with the GRACE Initiative and a non-resident senior fellow in peace building and global economic policy at the Global Governance Institute, Brussels in Belgium. He had previously held the position of Director and Deputy Head of the United Nations Peace Building Support Office, PBSO, at the UN headquarters in New York, where he acted as Assistant Secretary General from February to August 2009. At PBSO, he led the office effort in assisting the UN Peace Building Commission to develop peace building strategies, including supporting governance reforms and reconciliation processes for countries on the agenda of the PBC. Ambassador Otobo is widely published and has written on a wide range of issues, such as peace building, public service reforms, institutional development, governance, regulatory policy and management, and international trade, and so on. Ambassador Otobo, thank you very much. You're welcome. So you'll be speaking to the same topic, and as well as responding to what Dr. Bongo Adi has said, if you find that necessary. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes.
It's a great pleasure to join this group this afternoon in Nigeria and morning here in the US. Let me start by agreeing with some of the things that Bongo Adi said, that one, debt is not necessarily a bad thing. I think that's a very important point. It's what you use the debt to do that makes it troubling. Second, he also said that one of the problems Nigeria has is how we allocate our current financial resources at our disposal. And I think the record we have, as he said, is very poor. But I want to correct one basic statistical data point, which I thought he mispronounced. He was talking of the debt as being close to $44 billion. No, the debt is now about 86 billion, depending upon the exchange rate you use. It is now 33 trillion. And the data I have is this in terms of the GDP to debt ratio. One, in 2017, it was 25% of the GDP. In 2018, it was 27% of the GDP. In 2019, it was 29% of the GDP. In 2020, it's now 35%. So between 2019 and 2020, it dropped 6%. Now, we should not forget that in 2005, under Obasanjo and while Okonjo-Iweala was minister for the first minister of finance, they had undertaken effort to reduce our debt through a negotiation with the Paris Club. And everyone thought that going forward, we would have learned our lesson, but apparently that is not the case. So I want to focus on about 5 key points on this particular issue. The first is that what is Nigeria using this debt for? Of course, people think that it's infrastructure, but that is wrong. In fact, beginning towards the end of Jonathan's regime, we have started borrowing to pay recurrent expenditure. And any country that begins to borrow to pay recurrent expenditure, that is the first sign. That is the canary in the coal mine. That is the danger flashing the warning signal. Any country that cannot pay its recurrent expenditure from its revenue, its government revenue, is in deep trouble. And I think we should not forget that. We should not be lulled into the complacency of thinking that all of the government debt and the current increases are only being used for infrastructure. That is not true. Nigeria has started borrowing for recurrent expenditure, and I think that's a very terrible sign. Which leads me to my next point, which is my second point. Nigeria is still falling below the African average in tax collection. The typical African country now collects about somewhere between 17 to 20% of their GDP internally generated revenue. Now, Nigeria's tax as a percentage of GDP or internal revenue is something in the order of 7 to maximum 9%, which means that we are well below the African average. In fact, we are half of the African average, and therefore there is work to be done. The third point is, what are we using the money that we are generating for? That it is bad enough that we are borrowing so much, but it is worse that some of the borrowing is now beginning to pay recurrent expenditure. And one of the reasons for that is because beginning with the spike in oil prices after the Yom Kippur War in October 1973, when the prices of oil quadrupled from when it was $2 a barrel to about $8 a barrel. That was the famous quadrupling that you hear about in economic literature. Nigeria has had the luck of having the oil prices go up from time to time, and as a result, our political leaders got used to the idea that this oil boom will last forever, and as a result, expanded recurrent expenditure. I give you one striking illustration of how bad the situation has become. I'm sure most of you will have read in the newspapers recently, where the president himself said that the government will no longer be able to carry the burden of tertiary education because so many universities, so many institutions of higher learning have been established all over the country because of the premise that they thought the oil money would go. But that takes me directly to another point, which is the Oronsaye report. I'm sure most of you will have heard of the Oronsaye report. The Oronsaye report was a report that was developed during the period of Jonathan's presidency. Because at that point, they have started seeing the warning signals that Nigeria is not able to carry the financial burden that it has plunged itself through this huge and expansive bureaucracy. And when we talk of the Nigerian bureaucracy, it's wrong for you to think only of the civil servants and the rest. If that was the only problem, we would not have much of the issues that we have with respect to funding government bureaucracy. But we now have a situation where we have so many military institutions in the country, some of which don't have nothing to do with fighting. Some of them are doing research and other things. We have military universities in different places. We have many departments of government that duplicate each other. And that was one of the points that the Oronsaye report made, that the way to go was to fold some of the departments into the comparable ones rather than having them scattered all over the place. But that has not been done. The failure of the government, in fact, is the one who can even use the word successive government. Jonathan reviewed that report and they came with 3 categories of institutions. Those that the president himself can do, those that are part that were legislated by the National Assembly, therefore we require discussion with the National Assembly, and those that come directly from the Constitution. The wise thing to have been done was for the government using its executive authority to reduce the ones that were created by executive fiat. But even that has not been done. Talk less of the ones that were created by the National Assembly and those that are in the Constitution. So Nigeria needs a clean sweep, a clean set of negotiation, serious negotiation in order to merge these institutions, abolish some, and move forward. But that has not been done. And that's one of the reasons why Nigeria is now borrowing to cover its recurrent expenditure. The final point, which is closely linked to one of the points that Dr. Bongo Adi referred to, has to do with what I would call effective use of resources. He made the point, and I amplified it at the beginning, that even with what we have now, there is no determined serious effort for us to reallocate the resources the way that it should be. The other point which he made, which I want to echo and endorse, is the fact that for some years, I think over one and a half decades, we have had a body which is called concessionary regulatory private sector something. I saw they had an office almost opposite Federal Palace Hotel. They also have some office in Abuja. What that body has done, or what that body could do, is something that is shrouded in mystery. But they had a lot of promise, but it's not very evident. Why do I refer to that body? I refer to that body because one of the underlying premise of creating that body was the possibility for us to broker public-private partnership in order to reduce the burden, because if you have public-private partnership, that will reduce government effort to continue to borrow money for everything they do, because private sector will now be investing. So rather than borrow to invest in infrastructure or some of the related facilities, government now works with the private sector to get some of those funded as investment. So I will leave it here, and I welcome questions during the question and answer time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Thank you so much for the way you have approached the topic. I'm particularly fascinated by the point you raised about the government not being sincere, even with the information that they give out. It's like, I mean, if they're still giving us false information, it means that we're cooking the books. But I know that Elohim will be getting to that when we do the Q&A. So I want to bring in Elohim. Dr. Professor Utomi is here to join us. So I will bring in Elohim Barry to ask to make our contribution and then anchor the Q&A. And after that, we go back to the presentation of the Prime Business newspaper. Elohim Barry, I hope that's the pronunciation. Elohim Barry, communications and business expert. Elohim has over 15 years of proven track record in building and managing PR businesses. Ms. Barry graduated from Université Lyon 2 in 2003 with a Bachelor in Arts in English Literature and a degree in Translation and International Relations from ESTRI. She then graduated in 2005 with a Master's in Communications from EFAP, Lyon. Barry began her career as a media relations executive and PR newswire, a press release distribution company with headquarters in New York. She joined Africa Press Organization, APO, as its executive director, and in 2015, she founded Africa Media's Agency, AMA. She's a winner of many awards and was nominated in 2016 and 2017 as African Woman of the Year in the media category. She got awarded PIX Excellence of the ASCOM 2019. Elohim, please, you can make your contribution and as well as lead us through the Q&A. Please let me say that those who want to ask questions, you can raise up your hand. When you go under participant, raise up your hand, and then you can also send your question into the chat room. So we take the two. Either you raise up your hand or you send your question into the chat room. We take the two. But we need other voices, but we're recording this for posterity. So Elohim, please.
Thank you so much, German. Thank you for having me. And, as I was saying earlier on, I think this is such an exciting day, most particularly for the media. So I will not take a Nigerian approach because you are experts and I don't think I can really contribute to that. But at the premise of the project, so I'm calling him Marcel, Dr. Mabalou, Marcel, my friend, and I discussed of the need for a different flavor in the media landscape. So I got really excited when he told me about his willingness to sort of bring on board a different type of media that would look into investigative pieces, into in-depth analysis, and sort of move away from the usual cliches that we have. I think this is so important in the environment that we operate in. I'm based in New York. I do have teams on the continent, and the disparity between what is happening in Africa and how it's actually portrayed and what the US is basically talking about is crazy. So if we can sort of fill that gap through proper journalism, I think this is exactly what we need. So I have no doubt that this will be such a success, considering the experience that Marcel brings, his vision. And I think that seeing all of you here today and hearing the keynotes and the different contributions really is a testament to the following that he has already built. So I won't take up too much of the time because I'll speak to you later on. If you do have any questions, as Jaman just mentioned, please use the chat box for us so we can run through them later on. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Elohim. So if there are questions to be asked, I can't see any hand up yet, but we don't have any question in the chat room yet. But I think I would like to maybe flag up the question by asking both Dr. Bongo Adi and Ambassador Otobo, why is it that it is difficult for the government or those who are in charge of managing the economy of this country to give us, specific information, real accurate information? Because without information, I doubt how any corporate person in a corporate organization in Nigeria can function. Why are our statistics so skewed? Is this something political? Is this something deliberate to keep people uninformed? Yeah, because in the media, we actually need to know where we could run to get, because all these various information, sometimes confusing and conflicting information coming, it doesn't make for proper thinking and it cannot make for proper planning. Thank you. Any of you can take that up.
Well, I'll leave Ambassador Tobo to take that because he's closer to government. We are on the same side. Okay, your question is as good as mine. So Ambassador Tobo has been in government. He's in a better position. So I leave it to him.
Well, first of all, let me say that in terms of the debt figures, there has been some improvement since during Seludo's time when he was first economic advisor to Obasanjo and later governor of Central Bank, when he advised that the two offices of statistics should be merged. So since we formed the National Bureau of Statistics, there has been improvement. As you may remember, in early in the year, there was a big debate on how much
unemployment.
Unemployment. Then also the question of how much debt government was owing to China, and the debt management office came with a figure. Even then, people still don't believe. But so it speaks directly to what you were saying, Jamin and Nicola, that people don't trust government data. Sometimes the data may be clean, may be honest, but because of the past records, that the past behavior of the government, they still do not trust the government. And both the unemployment issue as well as the China debt issue is a striking illustration of how much distrust the public has for government. Now, the only way the government can come clean on this is to be giving people information from time to time that is accurate and factual. They should not wait for the public to demand for it systemically before they come out like the China one. Because people have been called, even in the National Assembly members have been calling for that China debt as far back as about 18 months ago. But see the time it took for the government to clarify. So time, as they say, time is money and time is of essence. When the government begins to delay, people used to say justice delayed is justice denied. When government begins to delay in putting out information which they have, that raises suspicion. And I think that's one of the problems that our governments have on this issue. That is why in some of the countries abroad, foreign countries, the governments come out with this data on their own very quickly so that there isn't room for suspicion or doubt about the veracity of government data. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ambassador. I think to support the point, there's been massive improvement in data collation, warehousing. Since Yemi Kale, became the statistician general. So yeah. He's made honest efforts to improve transparency and all of that. But again, the problem persists because I think there's a lot of incentive challenges that we have in government, and that undermines any sort of objective analysis that you have to make, because it's difficult to really understand in clear terms government intentions. Except the president came on TV the other day to explain that the reason why the rail track and the road network was being extended to Niger Republic is because he has cousins there. So, we will be scratching, our heads to rationalize that,
Yes.
But somebody posed that question to the Minister of Transport. He was that he had to go beg Nigerians to allow him to build infrastructure for them. So a lot of, scriptables, things that we can't really understand about the government. But I think it still has to do with the same political economy issue that I'm talking about. which is about control, government control. So we are running a very statist regime that don't want to allow anything out. So for them, governance is like capturing the spoils of power and then distributing it anywhere they like. So that's the key challenge that we have, and that creates a lot of perverse incentives. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jeff, he has his hand up. Jeff, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I want to start by congratulating Dr. Marcel Bamalu for this Oveli. Dr. Marcel is somebody I know very well, work under him. We both work under JAMA those days, about 10 years ago or so in the Guardian, or Sunday desk. To start with, I'm the assistant business editor of the Guardian. My question is simple and straightforward. When you talk about issue of debt, this is an area I've taken interest in. I've done a lot of stories on it. Each time we look at it, we look at the figure, the future is quite scary. It's easy for the government. What you hear this day is that we are borrowing to fund infrastructure. Nobody talks about human capacity building. If you look at human development index, Nigeria is right there sitting on the bottom. And my little theoretical knowledge about economics is that if the future generation is going to be where there is going to be richer than the current generation, to an extent, debt is sustainable. You can, and when you're taking debt, you also look at investing in the future too, so that the production, the future output is possibly such that will be able to offset whatever money you're borrowing or whatever body you're putting aside for the future generation. But right now, the government is not even thinking about human development index. We are not thinking about investing in knowledge. We are not talking about investing in health. We are not even talking about investing in skills. So my question is to Doctor, when you're talking about debt sustainability, what is your first consideration? Are you looking at infrastructure? We all witness to what happened last year because of the army of unemployed youth outside there. They took to the streets. There was a protest which was hijacked by some jobless hooligans who took to the streets to begin to destroy what government has spent money. Much of the part of the money spent. If you look at Lagos State, you can look at Lagos State as an example. Part of the infrastructure that were destroyed were built by debt. Now, is it not reasonable? Is it not more reasonable that we look at developing the future? The future generation ahead of infrastructure financing. When you talk about debt, is that not more sustainable? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Jeff, nice to hear you again. You and I have also spurred on this, your work on debt. I know you've called me several times. Yes, what you are saying is true. German points you have raised, but I take exception to you referring to those people as hoodlums. Well, that is what the media refers to them. But I can tell you that when you look at it from the statistical point of view, that could be the median behavior in the system, and that is actually what the Nigerian system has eventually churned out in the past 2 or so decades. So, and then when you consider that perhaps the future may be bleaker than even you see in the debt that you are analyzing. Yes, I cannot hold brief for the government because whatever we are saying here, we are talking to ourselves. Both of us are the receiving end. Okay, so what is the best way forward? How do we proceed? I have analyzed Nigeria's situation, and my conclusion is that we have a political economic problem. Okay, we have a system, an economic system, a social system, a political system that does not bring out the best in us. Okay, and then there is a problem of incentive. I can't say that enough. In the 10 principles of economics that I teach in school, the number 4 is that people respond to incentives. Okay, the incentive system in our the incentive structure in our system is such that there is no rationality for people to do their best, and that's a very big problem. It is a very big problem. So and then what government on a daily basis seems to reinforce that. Okay, so it's very reinforcing. Now, do we make a choice between physical infrastructure and social infrastructure and human infrastructure? I don't know if we need to do that, but these are all complementarities. If you build the roads, if you build physical infrastructure, the roads, the bridges, the power plants, and without also scaling up human infrastructure, what happens when the answers will keep repeating itself, and then you will have a mass of people you will describe as hoodlums who will come and then unscrape whatever it is that you have put in the name of physical infrastructure. So it is not a choice that we need to make. I think these are complementarities that need to go together. So we have to build a physical infrastructure. We need to develop human capacity, and then we have to also provide the social infrastructure. So all these work together in tandem. It can be one or the other. But unfortunately, because of, again, the hidden incentive of government, their interest is in building roads that lead to, that serve their private interests, as against what will be to the greater good of intergenerational Nigerians. So that is a problem. Like I said, I cannot hold brief for them. We will continue to talk, but I can't hold brief for the government. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I think we should go to Q&A. There are questions in the chat room that we have to pick. So, Elohim, can you take some of the questions? Some of the questions are long, so we'll find a way around them.
It's a question from Blessing, who's saying, in 2005, under Obasanjo, any country that refused, I think there's a part missing to your question. Anyway, Nigeria is falling below average in tax collection. Nigeria is 7 to 9%, which means we're all below the African average. What are we using the money we are generating for in Nigeria? The average African nation mobilized 80 to 90% of our GDP. Why is it that Nigeria have to borrow to cover its current expenditure or to pay up the previous expenditure? That's from Blessing Dr. Eloho.
Well, since I spoke on that, maybe I should respond to it. What are we? There is an elephant in the room that neither Dr. Adebongo nor myself have referred to directly yet. But now I think I'm going to touch the tusk of the elephant. Why is it that we are borrowing to cover recurrent expenditure? There was something that Dr. Bongo said, and it fits very well with the point I was making. He said that NNPC, I think for the first time, was audited, and what they found was very disturbing. Now, the obvious of that, of course, is that one of the reasons why we are borrowing to pay our recurrent expenditure is summed up in one word: corruption. The money that the government is getting, not all of it is going for the purpose that is intended. A very good example that most people know about is you will build an infrastructure, let's call it a bridge, which will ordinarily cost $100. But out of that $100, you siphon off $90. You are left with $10. So if you repeat that over time, you discover that the money that would have been there for you to put to meet your recurrent expenditure is not able to meet it. So that is exactly one reason. Corruption is clearly, it has different names. You can call it kickback, you can call it illicit financial flows, but corruption clearly is one of the reasons. The second reason, which I mentioned, is that the government bureaucracy, the public sector, however defined, has become so huge, especially at the federal level, and even in some of the states, that the resources that the government puts is not even any longer able to meet it. Quite apart from the fact that, as many of you would have heard, currently, I think the government spends about 80% of its revenue on recurrent expenditure, leaving only about 20% for infrastructure, which is one of the reasons why there is a lot of borrowing for infrastructure. There was a time they were trying to rebalance that ratio, but we have not succeeded, quite apart from the fact that we have established new institutions every year. I don't want to name some of them, but some of them are so crass, they are so stupid, that the idea of establishing new institutions on top of old institutions that perform the same function doesn't make much sense. And so between the fact that we have big and overlapping and duplicative institutions, excessive government departments, and limited tax revenue accounts, in addition to corruption, explain the reason why we find ourselves where we are with respect to using money to pay recurrent expenditure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to run through the next question. It's a question from Momo to Dr. Bongo. So Dr. Bongo talked about intra-borrowing as far better than international borrowing. However, considering that most African countries are poor and underdeveloped, how possible would it be if African countries decide to borrow from themselves?
Okay, I don't know if that's the way I put it. Thank you very much. I was talking about credit, the credit system. Eloyin, Ambassador Otobo, I think you are in the US or you live in the more advanced countries. You know the role of credit, in facilitating economic activities. So you don't, like, you want to get a house, you don't need to pay upfront. You don't need to pay the physical cash. So you can roll it for years, based on your salary or whatever you are rating, and so on. So the credit system, that's what I mean by domestic debt. Of course, sometimes it goes up, but it's part of the economic system, and then eventually it tends, plays itself out. So, which is different from the kind of borrowing that we are seeing with our government, borrowing from China, borrowing from so many sources. So that is the difference between that. Internal credit system actually works for the economy. It helps in catalyzing economic activities, in growth. So most developing countries or poor countries are also poor because of the underdeveloped nature of the credit system. Yeah. So why are countries poor? In African countries where there's high level of poverty, is it possible for us to borrow from each other? I think over time we have seen gradually the development of the credit system, even in Nigeria. So mortgage system is gradually coming up. It doesn't really have to do with the level of the income levels, but it's about financial innovation. And I think the financial houses, the banks, the financial institutions have to lead the charge, in that area, to develop appropriate, innovative financial solutions that will help ramp up credit system in this part of the world. So it doesn't really have to do with the level of income as such, but it's about appropriate financial systems. I don't know if that answered your
I think it does, and I thank you very much. We do have a question from Dr. Sola Adeyemi. I would like, Dr. Adeyemi, if you're happy and if you would like to unmute yourself to ask your question, we're more than happy for you to do so. If not, I'm happy running through it. I'll just give you a little time to unmute if you want, otherwise I'll read your question.
Oh, thank you very much. It's not really a question as such. It's more of a rumination about, from what Dr. Bongo Adi and Dr. Ambassador Otobo have said. I'm just talking about, from what they've said, it's totally clear that we can't survive by servicing debts, by using 90% of our revenue to service debts, and stealing 90% of the remaining 10%, leaving the rest not to cope with anything. And as you said, it's also not feasible to keep on borrowing to manage recurring expenditure. So my conclusion really is that, I mean, I'm not an economist, I'm a theater artist, but if debt servicing is unworkable and we can't really sustain getting into debt, what do we do? You know, Ambassador Otobo didn't want to talk about what the politicians are doing, but it seems as if our problem is actually the political structure. And again, I'm not talking about restructuring the federation, but I'm talking about the structure of the government itself. How much is being expended where money is not needed to be expended? I don't know if I'm making sense and if it comes out as a question. Thank you.
Yes, I can respond to that. I think you have made a very important point. Myself and a colleague, if you Google my name, you will see it. We wrote an article for The Nation about 2 years ago on reducing the cost of governance. Now, one of the reasons why the cost of we have been up till now, we have been talking at the macro level about how big the public sector has become and the rest. But there are a number of components that you look into to explain why that cost is skyrocketing. And it has led many people to question the value of democracy. So let me give you 3 reasons why within that big public sector, the cost is going up. The Economist did a survey in 2013 in which they compared the salaries of 15 parliaments around the world, both developed, developing, and Nigeria. And Nigeria was on top of all of them. Nigerian legislators are any more than the American, they are any more than the British, they are any more than, just name it, they are any more than any of those people. So looking at the cost, that is one huge cost component that if they had the commitment, that has to be brought down. As you know, there is a side debate going on now, whether in fact going forward, we should have full-time legislators or part-time legislators. So that's one component of that high cost that we are talking about. The second component of that high cost is the type of allowances that are given to people that hold political office, well and above beyond the legislators, which is a big issue. And the third is the multiplicity and overlapping institutions that we have. No one has summoned the courage, starting from the Jonathan era, which I spoke about, the Oronsaye report. No one has summoned the courage to say, look, enough is enough. Let's look at the institutional structure that we have and see how we can merge some, fold others, and dissolve some completely. I mean, I don't, like I said, I don't want to mention this here, but in the past 3 years, there are 3 departments of government that have been created that are now very, very expensive. I don't want to mention them because of people who are involved in them. But if you search the newspaper very closely, you will see that the government has created new institutions that there's no reason to create them. So that does it for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. I know we're reaching almost the end of this very, very fascinating and interesting conversation, but I'd like to call Dr. Marcel. Would you have like a comment to make on what has just been discussed?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Elohim. One would expect that as a host, perhaps I should just sit back and watch things play out. Yeah, but it's such a discussion, such a very touchy issue. It's very difficult to do so. I think part of the things I gathered from here is that, most times when government is speaking about debt, they tend to justify it with the issue of debt to GDP ratio and all of those stuffs. They keep telling you that, our debt to GDP ratio is still within the authorized, within the legitimate threshold, But I also observe that debt to GDP ratio actually shouldn't be the yardstick, for measuring suitability for every loan. Because I think it should be, and I would perhaps, without asking anyone to comment on that, I would think that talking about debt to revenue, actually, ratio should be what we should be looking at, because the problem with GDP ratio, debt to GDP ratio, is the fact that most of the drivers of GDP growth, don't really have the cash flow, and they don't have the power, or that is to have revenue opportunities. So, but beyond that, my final comments on that would be that, if we're going to summarize all of these, I would say that it appears Nigeria is on a sloppy side. Much as government is trying to play smart with its unholy borrowing habit, it's quite disheartening that the people will be made to pay for for such loans, and especially in the future. There was one of the stories when I was still with The Guardian, we really anchored that had to talk about how future generations will pay for a particular loan that was taken. Our children's children will have to pay, because the debt was going to be cleared in about 30 years. So the media, but the important thing is, what is the media? What should be the role of the media in all of this? What role has the media played in all of this? The media is not really doing enough in probing and playing the watchdog role. There are ample cases of media gagging, and still sanctioned bullying of the press, coupled with the lack of transparency in the loan deals, especially with China. The media can do better by keeping the issues fresh and constantly asking questions of leaders who go a borrowing. I believe that it's not enough to report on the new debts. Questions should be really asked to what legacy projects have come out from debt incurred years ago, and for which deductions are being made at sources, as well as what the opportunity costs there are. We really need to look at that, not just reporting new debts, government borrows this, raise alarm and all of those, but really following and monitoring what these monies are being deployed to for the benefit of posterity. So there is surely a first step to keeping the conversation on debts afresh. And this actually should be that step. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marcel. Thank you, Marcel, for that. You've been able to tell us actually why Prime Business newspaper is here, is to follow the money. I think that's the term we should use now, follow the money. So that we're not just reporting, we're not just saying they've just taken this. We want to know what they are using the money for. All the claim about infrastructure. If I don't know if anybody has seen the second Niger bridge, because they almost said that it was ready last year. I've not been to that. I don't know if it is ready, but that's part of what they borrowed money for. And we also need to note that when a minister comes to the National Assembly and starts saying, don't probe the loan, because the Chinese may be angry, I think we all should be angry. That a serving minister will come to the National Assembly and say, please do not ask questions about the loan, because the Chinese will not give us the money. I mean, okay, I'm just a moderator. So we want to go back to the second part that we suspended by asking Dr. Marcel Mbamalu, who is the publisher editor-in-chief of Prime Business newspaper, to tell us about the composition of the board, the two boards, and then we go into our corporate video, and then we take it home from there.
Thank you, Mr. Jama Anikulapo, who I call my editor. Yes, as I said earlier at the beginning of the presentation, at the beginning of the program, that we carefully chose those that are to steer the ship of news-type publications aright. And, part of our chairman, started with our chairman, the chairman of our board of directors, Dr. Bongadi, of course, a data analyst, we all know him, and he was chosen because of who he is. Everybody knows, which of course he has demonstrated here. So we are very, very grateful for his participation, and we are hopeful that, going forward, he's really going to lead us very well to the destiny, to the promised land. We look at Professor Chinere Stella Okunna. Professor Stella Okunna is the first female professor of journalism, in Nigeria. Arguably in Africa, people have argued that. I have not investigated that, but he steers clear from claiming that anyway. But she's on the board to support as deputy chair of the board of directors to support Bongadi and to actually steer the ship aright. Mr. Jama Anikulapo, of course, the seasoned editor. I worked under him at The Guardian. He gave us the mantle as he left. One thing I share in common with Jama Anikulapo is the fact that I regard myself as his mentee, and the fact that he left The Guardian at 50 when he was 50 years, and I left The Guardian when I was 50 years. I told him that, and that's on that score that we share a whole lot in common. So Mr. Jama will be bringing on the board a whole lot of experience, and he's a disciplinarian. He's a no-nonsense person. He doesn't take no for an answer when it comes to delivery. So I think that Mr. Jama Anikulapo is the right fit. In fact, we can leave the company for him. Once it's a news company, he will do the needful. Ambassador Ejeviome Eloho Otobo is my bosom friend and a very an intellectual. He's coming on the board with his experience on international relations, having worked at several international agencies, and currently lives in the US and been consulting for so many governmental and non-governmental agencies and doing so much research. I happen to have been privileged to review one of his books at The Guardian when I was at The Guardian. That was about 6-7 years ago, or about 8 years ago, rather. And it was a massive good book on Africa and issues of corporate governance and all of those. We also have people who can bring industry experience. Mr. Ugochukwu Tochukwu Duru will be bringing for experience he has in the market space for us to trade, because we need to not trade really. The right word is not trade, but for us to be able to break even when we talk about the business of journalism. The next person is Mr. Charles Chukwunonso Mobana, also coming from expert point of view on the industry, a technical person when it has to do with issues of accounting and all the rest. So we have a whole lot of great people, and our company secretary, Barrister Dennis Mbamalo, who is not here, is also going to bring his legal experience to the board, to the operations. Coming to the editorial board, Professor Pat Utomi, who is unavoidably absent here today. You will know him. He needs no introduction. He is a public person, and we know what he has done. He has been instrumental to setting up of some new business newspapers before, including the Business Day. Many people don't know that, but he did. He was one of the founding fathers of Business Day. So Pat Utomi will be coming to the board with his connections and with his experience. Dr. Bongadi, I have mentioned before, he's also on editorial board also. So Pat Utomi actually will be the chairman of editorial board, and he will be assisted by Eloin Barry. Eloin Barry, who is the co-moderator today with Jama Anikulapo, is actually the deputy chairman of our editorial board. She will bring in her Africa-wide experience. She's actually, she speaks French like I speak Igbo language, because she knows the domain, the terrain very well, the Francophone countries and everywhere, having been the founder and still the founder of AMA, Africa Media Agency, which is making waves across Africa. So she's a bridge between the Anglophone and Francophone countries of Africa. And because Prime Business Africa is going to go wide, it's not just a Nigerian company, we're going to go beyond Africa even. So she's going to play a major role in driving content for editorial board. Dr. Bashir Abdullahi, it's our anchor man in the north, because he's an academic, he's a very scholar, a very an avid scholar for that matter. He is very, very vast in terms of technology, in terms of research. Myself being a scholar and researcher too, our paths have crossed when we've done certain projects for the World Health Organization, when we did some training programs for the World Health Organization. So we've done things together before, and we saw him as someone who could help us bring good content to the table. So we still have others who are not listed here. Maurice Dabazi, Ambassador Martin Uhomoibi, Dr. Michael Okono is a lecturer at the University of Nigeria. Professor Nanelugo Koro is go back, please. Professor Nanelugo Koro is the professor of mass communication at the University of Nigeria. He will also be bringing his experience from the gown to the town, because we at the Prime Business Africa are going to be the bridge between the town and the gown, building synergy and learning experience across the two divides, the market-driven skills. We are going to help universities give their students the market-driven skills. So that's for now. We still have other members of Jury Board who cannot list here, so many of them, but when we have the time. We see Reverend Father George Ademike, lives in Rome. He's a very good writer. He writes for a lot of newspapers, international newspapers, and all of those. He has been a very bosom friend when I was at The Guardian. So he's on our editorial board. He's going to bring his experience. He's a religious man. He's a man of God. When we need prayers, he will offer prayers for us. So he's going to do so much for News Tide Publications and for the Prime Business Africa. So Reverend Father George Ademike, you're welcome to Prime Business Africa. So right now I would want us to have the corporate video of the organization, so that you can understand exactly where our drive is going and why we are here and what potentials perhaps God will help us deliver to you and the entire African continent.
It is a high honor and special privilege to introduce myself as a member of the editorial board of Prime Business Africa, which has just been established. My name is Ambassador Ejeveme Eloho Otobo, currently a non-resident senior fellow in peace building and global economic policy at the Global Governance Institute in Brussels.
My name is Eloine Barry. I am the founder and CEO of African Media Agency, a Pan-African PR solutions that works within the continent. We've got teams in Abidjan, in Kampala, in South Africa, Johannesburg and Durban, but also in Senegal and across all Francophone Africa and in North Africa.
Yeah, my name is Dr. Marcel Mbamalo. I'm the CEO of News Tide Publications Limited, publisher and editor-in-chief of Prime Business Africa.
I feel honored and privileged to serve on the board of Prime Business Africa. I said I'm honored because I'm not necessarily into business reporting, even though I spent years editing a newspaper and I've had to handle business stories. Let me just say I'm a nominal consumer of business news. But having been brought here to serve on this board, I feel that I'm about to start a new orientation.
So News Tide Publications Limited actually covers a wide range of area in journalism, and we are just coming out with the very first title, which is Prime Business, Prime Business Africa, www.primebusiness.africa. And while we decided to launch that, because we believe that for every economy, not just in Nigeria, the African economy is actually dependent on how the private sector, is driven and how the micro economy is thriving. If the microeconomy thrives very well, it's going to impact on the overall corporate governance of countries. So we believe that we need to, as a watchdog, a professional team of journalists, we believe that we need to be the watchdog in that sector to be able to provide in-depth analysis, provide data, provide news and accurate, balanced, and true reporting in the area of business and economy, and that's the reason we are here.
Prime Business Africa will fill a special void in terms of in-depth analysis on economic and social trends and policies in Nigeria, West Africa, and Africa.
To me, Prime Business Africa is the publication that we need. Certainly in Nigeria, but most importantly, moving forward on a Pan-African scale. We need investigative journalism, we need good in-depth pieces. This is the tool and the media that will help further the communications infrastructure that I've been raving about for quite some time now.
I'd like to see Prime Business Africa as the number one on the continent. And when I say, you can be number one and still be empty, I don't mean just leading. If they say the horse in front is the one that will take first, do you know whether the horse is now sick and after breasting the tape to fall down and crash? Because we've seen medium that came to be, number one, they were leading, but we saw the way they crashed. They crashed because of the ethical values that we've been talking about. They were not able to sustain whatever, because the battle is not getting to the top, it's remaining at the top. So that's why the foundation has to be solid. In the house where we're seated now, if the ground floor was not solid enough, you can't be on the second floor. I'm sure you know that. So once the foundation is solid, I can see that the Prime Business Africa will be number one.
Dr. Marcel Mambalou has been a dear friend of mine for many, many years. I've always admired his work, his ethics, his understanding of what good reporting and excellent journalism is. He's driven by passion and hard work.
I've known Dr. Marcel Mbamalu for quite a long time when he was working at The Guardian. He was the one who wrote the review of my book, Africa in Transition, a new way of looking at progress in the region, which offers an in-depth analysis on not only in the social, political, and economic trends in Africa, but on issues relating to peace building, governance, public policy reform, and foreign policy of Nigeria.
I think Dr. Marcel Mbamalu, I have to get used to calling him Dr. Marcel Mbamalu, he'd always be Marcel. The first thing I noticed about his personality was this warmth. He has an aura. He enters a room and he fills the room. I studied theater arts in school, and there's something we call stage presence. He has stage presence, that means character. He has a good profile. When he gets into a room, you are forced to raise up your head from what you are doing to look at him first. Not because he's the finest man on earth, but because of the aura. I think it's that one you can say is divine. It's spiritually given. That somebody gets into a room and you say, wow, this is a character that has entered the room. He's tall, he's big, he's fair complexion, he's handsome, let me put it that way. But there's also the aura, and the aura comes with the aura is fleeting. It's not something you can capture by the hand. It's something in the air. You just feel it when the person enters the room. Gawa.
Yeah. I regard myself as an editor, teacher, and a human capital developer, because by inclination and by the virtue of what I do, I think journalism actually runs in my blood, and that's why we are doing this. We had other options. We had so many other things to do, but we felt that having been privileged to be so trained in the field of journalism, at least my first degree was in journalism. My second degree journalism, my third degree in journalism. So I believe that I can't. To whom much is given, much is expected.
What I hope to bring to this endeavor is the collection of best practices that I've encountered in all this my writing and reading of foreign newspapers. And I hope to join the other members of this group to make it a huge success.
So having gotten so much from the society, I think I need to give back. And that's why we are doing this. So we are ready to train younger journalists, individuals who want to play a good role in the media space. So we offer that platform, the Newstide Communications platform, to bring in younger Nigerians, and equip them to become better journalists, become instruments for national development, to assist in informing Nigerians and Africans, and become instruments of development, so to speak. So that's why we are here, and God helping us, we will deliver. By the grace of God, we will deliver.
I look forward to helping to do 1 or 2 trainings on writing, to tell you that you can make business story to read like short story. Who doesn't like to read short story among us? Short story like we post on Facebook. So why don't you report the business like that? After all, when you get to your house and you want to talk to your family about business, you don't start speaking jargon that your wife will drive you out of the house. So I look forward to an opportunity to be able to impart things about. Let me use an expression that somebody said, I'm an editorial Puritan or Puritanist, that like for the text to be right. We don't get it right all the time, but I'm the type that can, when I'm editing a paper, I make sure that every damn copy I'll read. If I don't have time to read it, I get a bit nervous that this way I didn't read it. How did it go? So I'm a Puritanist when it comes to editorial content.
I can't wait to see where this venture takes you. I have no doubt it will be very successful. I'm very happy to be here for you, to support your venture, to advise where I can, and to learn alongside you. So on this note, I wish you every success, and let's launch this beauty, Prime Business Africa.
Well, thank you very much. It's a very enlightening video, even though I appeared in it. I didn't know that was what they needed it for, but very well edited and tight. So I commend the technical team. I think I can say that is the kind of material that you'll be getting from Prime Business Newspaper. Now, we are now posting very, very humble. We've taken the question and answer. We've had a discussion. It's now for me to just say thank you to everybody for coming. I think I would like to ask myself to first of all say the thank you. Then I can list mine on top, because you invited all of us. Some of them I just met today. So I yield the floor to us.
Thank you, editor. Once again, I feel very delighted. I'm very delighted to welcome everyone who participated remotely in this venture. I still call it venture because it's going to remain a venture that will succeed. First of all, I don't know if I start listing, just permit me. I can't list names, but I have to thank all, first and foremost, our chairman, Dr. Bongadi, for making out time. We've been working together to make this a reality. He made this time, and resources are available to ensure that everything worked according to plan. I thank the deputy chair who unavoidably couldn't be here, Stella Okunna, and also other members of the board, the company board of directors, including our moderator today, Mr. Jama Nikolapo. Is really, really, really an anchor, a wonderful performance. Every member of the board, I thank you very much, and the editorial board members, Professor Pato Tommy, who is our chairman of the editorial board. Thank you, sir. We've been actually putting heads together since April to ensure that this happens. Also, his deputy, who is also the co-moderator here, Madam Madam Eloine Barry, my old-time friend. We are happy that you made it all the way from New York and you are here to make this a reality. We are very, very grateful. And the other members of the jury board, who are many of them, Professor Okoro and the rest, who are here to participate in the program. So, and then the attendees, all the attendees, including representatives from some people who came with that card of coming from my own hometown. I think about 2 of them to say congratulations for this. You're also welcome. Anybody from, I think 2 of them are here from Ojoto, representing His Royal Highness Igwe Gerard of Nadike Mbamalu. You are welcome. The company secretary, Barrister Dennis Mbamalu, you're welcome. And each and everyone who has made this occasion a reality, I'm very, very grateful. May God reward you. I promise that we will not disappoint you. As long as we have people on the board, the caliber of people we have on the board, the persons like Jama and Nicolabo, who he has told you here, he's a Puritan, Puritan for editorial content. So we are very grateful. I say thank you very, very much, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Marcel Mbamalu. The thank you has been done. Thanks to everybody who has joined from everywhere who have joined us today. Just remember that the 2-in-1 venture, www.primebusiness.africa. That is the main newspaper. And then you have, and like us on Facebook, on social media too. You also have www.newstide.ng. I posted them in the chat room. Please go to our social media and like us. Don't worry, Twitter will soon be back. It's either Twitter will prostrate or the federal government will prostrate, or something will happen. We'll be back on Twitter. But you can join us on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, and all the other mediums. Thank you. Note that this kind of conference will be almost every month, very regular, because a lot of things to discuss about Nigeria. We're out of here. Thank you.